Hey everyone, welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for this weekly astrology report. We are at the third quarter moon. Today is December 7th, 2020. It is Pearl Harbor Day in the United States. And we are now coming into the last quarter of this incredible lunar cycle that started with a new moon in Scorpio and was, this purification by fire, the phoenix rising from the ashes, is really the theme of this lunar cycle. We had a lunar eclipse with the full moon, and this cycle will be ending and starting anew with a total solar eclipse in Sagittarius on the south node of the moon over the galactic center. It is incredibly karmic and will impact our lives for months to come. So finishing out this cycle right now is really important. And as we move through this week, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to go back to that new moon and what it stood for, and have opportunities to really purify ourselves. And not only that, but to experience the purification and then to transform ourselves and our actual lives as a result of it. Because it's one thing to experience the purification, to burn it all down, to be the phoenix rising. That is the moment that, we're all waiting for, and it's glorious and it's explosive and all of the things associated with it. But the real challenge to that is how we then take that moment and apply it back into our everyday mundane reality, in our relationships, our collective values, the structures that we're collectively creating together, and the essence of our collective, of our life together on this planet in this lifetime. That's the real challenge. And oftentimes we can experience these moments of nirvana, right? These transformative moments when we go through the dark night of the soul. And the real challenge, and a lot of times this is why it takes a couple of times of going through this process to really wake up to how we can apply this to our everyday life without having to completely burn all of that down. So this week is going to really show us, it's really going to show us, it's going to bring us right to the precipice of it. And this full moon, or this third quarter moon, when it squares the sun today, there is a really important aspect of the Sabian symbol. So the moon is in Virgo, as we see here, and I'm going to talk about the transits leading up to it, but I just want to start this report with a really important phrase about the position of the moon when it does square the sun today in Sagittarius. Unless some form of purification by fire is experienced, the inner pressure of the karmic past or of more recent frustrations would shake up more destructively the very foundations of the personality. Okay, this is the degree, 17 degrees of the moon in Virgo today when it squares the sun at 17 degrees Sagittarius. So this is a crisis in consciousness. This is not so much about what we do, but where our attention goes, our conscious awareness. Are we going to give our conscious awareness to our emotional moment of a volcanic eruption, especially if there hasn't been any kind of purification by fire? And that has been this whole lunar cycle, has been about this purification by fire experience. Are we going to, and if we have not been going through that, then rest assured there will be a volcanic eruption that will be more destructive, will be so destructive that it will shake the very foundations of our personality. And then in square to the sun in Sagittarius, the teacher of our collective values, our expression of our beliefs and our truth, and what we deem as understanding the underlying current of reality. Rebirth, right? We want to express ourselves through a collective experience of rebirth. Okay, so this is where the square is. We're going to have to lean into it and really feel the tension in order to decide where our consciousness is going to be focused on. Okay, and this is the square that then leads us into the last quarter, which is where the moon gets darker and darker and darker. It becomes much more important and essential to get more quiet, to get more still, to be able to sink deeper into the emotional and intuitive landscape on the inside in order to really get just to go deeper, to get the real jewels of this process. All right, we're not going to get it outside in the external realm necessarily. We're going to have to sink very deep. And with Venus in Scorpio right now, as you can see, moving into that third decan of Scorpio, this is actually Venus rules the third decan of Scorpio. It's the Seven of Cups in the tarot, debauchery, total immersion into the depth of feeling. And it is not an easy place for Venus, right? This is the murkiness of those experiences. This is how she gets weighed down in all of the emotional options that are available to her. And yeah, it's becoming very palpable, like I said, in many reports, very real. It's going to be based in our relationships and what we actually value. Venus rules what we love and what we value, the actual nuts and bolts of our reality around us and what's important to us. And so, yeah, plenty of opportunity this week. So before we get to the square, which is happening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the moon in Virgo is in a trine to Uranus today, is going to square Mercury in Sagittarius at the degree of the lunar eclipse. So Mercury is at the degree the sun was at the full moon lunar eclipse. So the moon in Virgo is going to square that position. Venus in Scorpio is in a quincunx to the North Node, in conjunct with the North Node. And then the moon is going to be in an opposition to Neptune today. And at the same time, also will be in a quincunx. It's not exact yet, but you'll see later it'll be in a quincunx to Mars in Aries. So Virgo, this is where we develop our character, like our true character. Leo is where we express that yearning for self-actualization, really get to learn how we fully express ourselves. And we've been feeling it. This weekend was a lot of fire. And now with the moon in Virgo, it's down into the root system, down into the soil, doing the work under the surface. And it's very meticulous here. There's no room for things being out of whack. Everything needs to be exactly where it's supposed to be. We have to organize things perfectly, a little anal retentive in Virgo, a little judgmental, and not in a Sagittarius dogmatic way, but in a very analytical, no, this goes here, this goes there, this is out of alignment, so I'm going to fix it. And emotionally, that can really keep us from seeing a bigger picture as well. So the moon in a trine to Uranus. Uranus has continually been shaking up the very foundation of our material world in order to teach us over and over and over that nature works in a cycle. There is nothing constant except change in this natural world. And Uranus is the path of the collective awakening, is the collective third eye. It is radical transformation. It is that lightning bolt of awareness that you can't really predict, but it will happen because it is meant to balance everything, right? Lightning is just a natural, it's just a natural homeostasis with the charged ions in the atmosphere. Electrons move. This is how nature works. Electrons move to balance charge, and that is the release of the energy when electrons move. That is what electricity is. So Uranus is constantly changing and not letting us find any real stability in what we value and the world around us, our resources, in order to allow us to awaken collectively to the idea that it will find its balance, right? Chaos cannot continue forever. There is always a cycle that comes back around to balance. And in fact, we can anticipate what's to come if we actually have faith in this renewal process. And so Uranus has been teaching us this in the most uncomfortable way possible. And keep in mind that Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So there's a lot of focus on the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. There'll be a report about that soon. Just Uranus is the path right now. And as as disruptive and uncomfortable as it is, the fact that this doesn't seem like we can really ever settle into anything, it is showing us that there is way more to this than what we may see. And this is how we awaken. So every time there is another type of control mechanism, every time there's another shift in the resources around us, in what we value, it leads us back around to the fact that this cycle will come back around. There is no way that things can stay chaotic forever, but we do need sometimes to be shook in order to wake up, right? And that's what Uranus is going retrograde. So it's going to come back over all this territory again. Soon, is going to direct soon, definitely within the month. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind too. In the meantime, this trine to the moon, wow. We want to express ourselves, right? We're learning our character at this point in early Virgo. So there are still confines that we can express ourselves in. We're still kind of working with our teacher, whatever that teacher represents, is represented to us. It could be, our guru, whatever that means, the culture around us, our family structure, our whatever that is. We're still learning. We're still learning about ourselves, and we're learning how to master ourselves at this point. And so if we're not so focused on like really just blowing ourselves out emotionally right now, we're staying within the context of what we're being taught emotionally. This is very going to help us stay balanced and emotionally secure and balanced as this disruption is happening. So, but it does require that we don't go outside of the prescribed steps of the prescribed pattern that we're being taught right now. And so when the moon then comes to square Mercury in Sagittarius, right, this is a swiftness. This came up in the daily medicine intuitive reading today. There's a swiftness of our mind in the first decan of Sagittarius with Mercury. But the urge here is then we are starting to want to express ourselves so uniquely, so individually, that we will do so even, we want to be so original that we will do anything. It's like an expressionist painter, right? And the square here is showing us that, well, when it comes to information, learning, right? Mercury is about learning, language, information, data. It's our responsibility to use that information to really help people along in the process. Okay, not everybody is at the same speed, is at the same condition. And it's just like a parent teaching the child to walk upstairs, right? Stairs are not natural. They are creation of human ingenuity and civilization, right? A child learns to walk on their own as a result of instinct and natural progression, but learning to walk up the stairs is something that a parent or a caregiver or an adult has to teach the child. So as much as we want to be like expressing ourselves and completely outside of the realm of what is prescribed, right? It is the square here is going to challenge us to bring it back around to, well, it's our responsibility in some ways to teach people, to give the information that is going to help people make that progression, right? When they are not naturally attuned to it necessarily, okay? And this can have a lot of different meanings, but we are talking about the realm of mind and information. So as much as we want to just express ourselves and get it all out there, remember that the information that's coming out is in a very prescribed fashion, and it is meant to go through. There is no hierarchy of existence necessarily, but learning is a hierarchy, right? You have to go from one step to the other, and there's a responsibility to help people along the way that aren't at the same level that we are, whatever that means to you. That can be literal if you have children, right? Teaching them things. But you can't do that when you're like, I'm just going to be an expressionist painter and just like do everything outside of the box without any rules right now. That's, we still learn about who we are through this process, but the square is going to be, you know, the discomfort in that situation as we try to make sense of all of this. Venus is going to quincunx the North Node, and Venus in Scorpio, right? She's just like, I'm just going to throw these curtains aside. We see the middle path between the duality. And in terms of our relationships and what we love and what we value, we see the middle path. We see that we pull the dark curtains aside and we see the path down the middle. And so there is an awareness in our relationships and what we value, that the middle path is how we move forward. The quincunx is the North Node, which is like, well, I have options and access to all of these ideas. And just like everything else in Gemini, it is a duality. Every idea has its opposing antithetical perspective, and we are just heaping it onto our tray from the buffet right now. So it will take an adjustment. Not to say that one perspective is better than the other. The North Node is pulling us towards our karmic destiny. This is what our collective soul needs to evolve, whereas Venus is really about what makes her feel better. And we want to see the path down the middle and walk it and push aside the duality and the darkness that it has brought us. But at the same time, there's so much information out there. There's so many perspectives still to engage with, and this will require an adjustment on our part. Now the moon then will, like I said, will square the sun. This is our crisis in consciousness. This is the eruption moment versus the rebirth moment. Are we going to focus in on how we feel about this eruption, right? This purification by fire. And if we haven't even allowed this, then this will destroy things completely. And we're talking about our emotions. Or are we going to express ourselves through this process as a rebirth? And so this will be very uncomfortable, and it will put us in a position where we have to very strongly consider where our consciousness is going to be moving forward. The moon is then going to be in opposition to Neptune. Emotionally, we're going to want to start swimming, right? Of course. And Neptune in Pisces is in its power, which is now moving direct, right? The master instructing the disciple. Real divine spiritual knowledge comes from a total dissolution into everything else. This is merging with source, okay? And this is where we get the instruction. This is where we get the transmission of our, what it means to reach mastery. Now, this is the ocean that could just totally overpower us if we're not careful. And here's us on our little surfboard being like, we can do, or swimming, right? It's really us just like emotionally trying to swim to get somewhere. And in the quincunx too, with Mars in Aries, again, this will require an adjustment because Mars in Aries is like, I am, for my own ego consciousness, I'm going to be activated and impulsive and courageous, and I'm just going to fly over all of this. Like, forget the ocean. I'm on a magic carpet, yo. And this is tempting, right? But we have to actually get in the water and do the swimming. So surfboard, right? We all have our own methodology here about how we're going to do this, but the surfboard is the one that I've personally been working with. And you can think of that as like a magic carpet, but you can't just like transcend it all in your courageous, like warrior aspect of just flying over all of it, because that's not going to fit either. We do have to emotionally just deal with where we're at, which is we have to start swimming. We have to start learning to work together. But that requires that we each master ourselves first. So today, whoa, boy, lots of eruption and lots of that immediately goes into almost survival mode emotionally, which is very, very interesting. So as we move forward through this week, we're going to see a lot of stuff with Neptune, right? First of all, Sun and Neptune are going to square each other because we have these two mutable energies, the Sun and Pisces, both mutable. So you can see here, and there's a strong desire to express ourselves through this cultural rebirth, that we all come together to celebrate these collective values. And then once that we reach that point, we get to this point where we really want to move on to safer areas, right? We want to fly above the ocean, right? Like the pelican. And recognizing spiritually that we want to move to a safer area, we will want to do that. We will want to fly above it all and get ourselves collectively to a place where we can actually, take care of the younglings in a safer place, right? And the thing about the square is, the ocean is still ravaging. It is still very powerful. And again, this will be a square. There's no way to adjust, there's no way to resolve this. We just have to lean into how uncomfortable this is. And look how close it is to the South Node. Remember, the South Node is our karmic history. It is what we have mastered, our past lives. It is the tail of the dragon. So it does provide the momentum forward, but it also is not where we're headed. It is where we've been, okay? We can use that to push us forward, like I said, the momentum, but it's not where we're headed. And we have to, this is really hard with the sun, because the sun does represent the blossoming of who we are. So it's almost like when we get to this eclipse, we are going to utilize everything that we've learned in the past already about alchemy and understanding and the inner values that we all have together as a way to propel us forward. But we can't get stuck here. And this is something I'll talk way more about in the eclipse report, because it's so relevant. But this will be a huge theme coming up, because not only do we have the sun, as you can see, is in this square to Neptune in Pisces. It's just been unrelenting now that it's moved forward. Like Neptune is the great dissolver. So there's no way around this, it's just so, the ocean is so strong, and we are really getting the full teaching, right? The full transmission by almost forcibly dissolving into everything that there is, and almost drowning. That's the thing about Pisces in the 12th house. It's where mystics swim and where psychotics drown. And if we go back to where the moon was in Virgo, the mystics are going to be swimming. And we have to be aware of that. And this whole lunar cycle has been preparing us for this, to be this mystic, to be able to go through this purification process and then come out of it as the phoenix, and then apply that to our life. And that's being a mystic in our everyday life and what that actually looks like. So, but we want to leave, right? We want to go to the places that are safer. And it may not be as easy as it seems on the surface, okay? Now, when we move on to the 10th, this is where we have Venus at the degree here of the new moon in Scorpio is going to be in a sextile to Pluto. So this new moon period, right, the transformation, the challenge to the transformation will be very palpable in our everyday lives, in what feels good, in our relationships. And Pluto has just been destroying every institutionalized structure that has allowed us to go within and experience this transcendent experience, right? Going into the convent where everything is stripped away from you and your only focus is on the transcendent experience. Well, Pluto is taking it all away. It's just destroying it, pulling it away, and it's going to be transforming it as a result. So, but Venus in this position, we're going to really get to feel it in our material life, and we can really activate this transformation that came with the new moon. That was the seed of our intention, was with the new moon. This is going to be all about, is the ground fertile for it? And if it is, we can activate this Pluto to really just, in some ways, it's going to pull the rug out from everybody in terms of their way of connecting with source. And it's going to force us to do it on our own and not rely on these outside institutions to provide it for us, okay? But this is going to be like, is the soil fertile for this seed to really be viable? This is where this Venus in Scorpio is really going to bring that right to the forefront. Along with that, the moon is going to be in Libra. It's also going to sextile the sun in Sagittarius. and trine the North Node, oppose Mars, okay? So Mars, we are going to want to be the champion of compassion, right? And it's really just about us, right? Mars in Aries, it's just about Mars and Aries. And um, overcoming crisis through compassion sounds great on paper, but just realize that it's all about us doing it, like in our ego consciousness, overcoming that crisis through compassion. It's not really about anybody else, but emotionally it will be about everybody else. And that's something to keep in mind with this opposition. We need the warrior in us in order to overcome the crisis through compassion, but we can't get stuck there because we still have to consider that other people are involved in this process. And emotionally with the moon in Libra, we will consider that. We will emotionally want to focus on the balance of the scales, make sure it's fair, make sure it's just, and not just get caught up in our own narrative of how we're the warrior and we're going to overcome everything. Okay, so yeah, the where is this, the 10th? Wow, that's incredible day as well. The 11th, the sun is going to it's going to meet the south node. It's going to trine Mars. Mars is also going to trine the south node as well, and the moon will now have moved into Scorpio. So the moon is getting very dark. Now it's in Scorpio, so it's getting dark and it's getting intense emotionally, and we are expressing ourselves through our past karmic actions, right? We have got to be very mindful of this. And it's also in a trine to Mars, again, that wants to overcome the crisis through compassion, is going to be in a trine to the south node as well. This is like pulling back the slingshot, okay? But we have to not identify ourselves with the potential energy of where the slingshot is, right? We just have to acknowledge that we are the ball in the slingshot pulling back, and we will release, right? But we can't identify ourselves completely with that, which is going to be really hard. And it's going to be so fiery on the 11th, so fiery. And what is this degree? Assuring supply for the winter, right? It is thinking ahead. There's so much of this thinking ahead energy in the astrology right now. And also, again, overcoming crisis through compassion. Mars is going to be the compassionate warrior. I'm here to run the crusades, and I am feeding the birds in wintertime. I am giving those who can't sustain themselves the sustenance they need. And these are all great things. We just can't completely over-identify ourselves with that, because remember where the North Node is. It is the multiplicity of ideas. This is where we're headed in order to evolve, okay? But we will have this slingshot moment here on the 11th, all this energy. Wow, there's so much action potential here. And then with the moon, again, in Scorpio, emotionally, it's going to get very intense, very deep and very intense. So moving on to the 12th. Let's see here. The moon is going to trine Neptune in the same degree that everything else was trining Neptune, right? That transmission, that channeling, and it's going to come through very strongly in our and it's going to be way deeper this time, okay? So much deeper, and Neptune is moving direct, so it'll be so much stronger. It's going to require us to get very quiet, very deep, very still. We want to be the calm lake with the moonlight on the lake, no disturbances, okay? And let's see, where is this? The 12th, the 11th, where are we at? The 12th. The moon is going to meet Venus, and it's going to be like a military parade, okay? So it's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance, and kind of just like the swell of pride in the world that we value, and as well as emotionally. There's going to be a major event, I feel like, that's going to have us swelling with pride, being very almost aggressively glorifying our communal relationship with each other. And at the same time, the moon is going to sextile Pluto, the same place that Venus sextiled Pluto just a few days prior, right? And so again, at the new moon, the point of the new moon. So the moon will be back around at the point that it was when it was at the new moon. So we'll get an emotional, like, go back around and be like, okay, I see now. Do I recognize how I felt at the beginning of this cycle? Have I actually fulfilled everything that I had set intentions for? And emotionally, we're going to come back around to that. And if we have, then Pluto will allow, it'll allow us a very, it'll allow for us to engage with what Pluto is doing as transformation rather as just pure destruction, which could be really devastating in some ways for people. The 13th, we're getting so close to the end here, right? The 13th, we have the moon is now in Sagittarius. It is going to trine Chiron at the same degree that that grand fire trine was, where Mercury was. So what's that? The wise old owl, right? We are in a position where we can see through what other people don't see, as long, and we can be calm and poised in the face of tragedy or in the face of crisis. And we're talking emotionally now, not just in our mind, which is where Mercury was, but now it's going to be very personal, something that we feel. And at the same time, Mercury is going to square Neptune again. Now we're mentally going to want to like get away from all of the garbage and all of the unsafe areas. We're going to mentally want to escape. The information is going to give us an opportunity to escape, to transcend all of the unsafe areas in order to allow future generations to prosper in a better place than we have been. Again, it's in square to Neptune in Pisces. The ocean itself, we cannot really contend with it, but this is where the mastery transmissions are coming from. And there is an investiture here if we can really dissolve into it. Again, mystics swim, psychotics drown here in Pisces. And then we come to the solar eclipse on the 14th. So what does that look like? Well, lots of things. And that's something I'm going to talk about in its own report, because I'm going to talk about the fixed stars that are involved. But you can see here that Mercury, the sun, and the south node and the galactic center are all kind of, and the moon, obviously, will all be together at this eclipse. And so it's very karmic. It's very galactic. It's has a lot to do with the realm of our mind and our thinking. And then the moon is going to completely pass in front of the sun and darken it out. And so our feelings about it, as much as they're transient, are going to be what is on the surface as opposed to our full self-expression about it. So I hope that you found this helpful. There's a lot going on this week. There'll be daily astrology to kind of bring it in. There's always the daily intuitive messages on Facebook that really also help to bring it all together. There's just a lot going on right now. So if you found this information helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel, smashing that like button. It really helps get the information out there. Everything else you need is in the description box below, including the website, email, and social media contacts. And I would love for you to join me on social media just to keep in touch there. And if you're interested in booking services, you go to the website and it's all there. I love you guys so much. I will see you on the next report for the solar eclipse. Bye.